Is it recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi there, this is Emily, also known as the Literary Queen, and I'm here to talk to you about my favorite book of 2017, Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. This book is fabulous. First of all, it's a collection of linked short stories. Actually, I don't even know if they're really linked, except for by the fact that they're fabulous, and they're slightly magical realist at times. There's some science fiction thrown in there. There's a ton of feminism, and a lot of them are very sexual, which, you know, it's always fun to read. My favorite story would probably be the very first one in the collection, which sort of sets off the tone. It's called The Husband Stitch, which I'll let you look up what that actually is. And it's a take on the horror story we all read as kids in that book with the scary black and white pictures on the cover, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, about the guy that goes on a date with a woman and she's a green ribbon around her neck, and then like, what do you think happens when you take off the green ribbon? But this is a take on about a woman who gets married and her husband keeps wanting to pull that ribbon, and there's a whole other subtext. There's also a really great story called Inventory, where you start off and you just think it's this woman talking about all the people she's slept with. It's an inventory of them. But then you slowly start to realize that like a pandemic of some sort has basically wiped out the world, and people are dying. And so but it just slowly creeps in there. And the way it's passed on is through touch. So people could just keep themselves separate. They would, but you can't because you want to touch. And that's fabulous. And then there's a really weird story in here that a lot of my friends have disliked, but I really got into. And it's called Especially Heinous. Especially Heinous, 272 Views of Law & Order SVU. Now, I love Law & Order SVU, Olivia Benson, one love. So I was super into this. And it's fascinating because it goes through, I don't remember how many seasons, at least 7, I want to say. Nope, more than that because there's season 10 here. And it takes the names of each episode, and then it comes up with little synopses that are not at all what actually happens in the episode, even though they are the names of the episode, because I've been rewatching it recently, and I'm like, that is an episode. And we get it gets sort of magical realism. Benson starts seeing girls with bells, and then there's she has a relationship with one of the district attorney ADAs that we all love, and we know it isn't really happening, but it ends up being about women and our bodies, and what happens to them, and all the sexual abuse, and how that can get to you, and it's a really long story. It is well over 50 pages. So, some people are like, oh, it gets a little weird. But I actually kind of loved it. There was a period halfway through where I went, oh God, and then it just kept going. And then, so that would be another really good one in here. I just really can't recommend this enough. They're all really weird, and I wouldn't give it to your uptight grandmother, but I would definitely suggest you read this. I will read you a section from Inventory, which is the collection about where the world's falling apart, and she's talking about the people she slept with. And so, for example, one woman, brunette, a former CDC employee. I met her at a community meeting where they taught us how to stockpile food and manage outbreaks in our neighborhood should the virus hop the fire break. I had not slept with a woman since my wife, but as she lifted her shirt, I realized how much I had been craving breasts, wetness, soft mouths. And it goes on from there. So again, risque, but it's really about our need for physical contact. And you could argue that all these stories actually are about our physical needs. But either way, I loved this collection. I cannot recommend it enough, and I highly recommend you check it out. I think I've literally bought 10 copies and given them away. So please, give it a read, Her Body and Other Parties. Thanks.